This is always interesting. But this year, with these elections, there are some new developments that inject a lot of unknown variables into it. But I want to start by just sort of laying the foundation, giving an environmental scan, who the players are. A lot of you in here probably are familiar with the parties. Some of you may not be, and I know I believe the event's being live streamed, so there may be more people who aren't familiar with a lot of the names. Starting at the top of the political pyramid, there are really two main political parties. The Awami League, which actually predates Bangladesh's independence and was instrumental in Bangladesh achieving its independence from Pakistan in 1971. And then there is the other major political party, which is the major political party in opposition right now, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. And the Bangladesh Nationalist Party was founded a few years later, actually right after the first military coup. The first military dictator, General Ziaur Rahman, as military dictators do, sought to hold on to power, but to do so in a way that transitioned to legitimacy. So in order to do that, he had to get some electoral support. Also, as military dictators tend to be, he lacked a natural constituency. So he reached out to the one group that had not already been absorbed into the new politics of the new country, and that was Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islamists more generally. So he edited, by fiat, the Constitution of Bangladesh and removed secularism as a founding principle, replacing it with trust in Almighty Allah. That was sort of the beginning. Now, if you fast forward to a bit, the relationship between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat-e-Islami became much more enmeshed. The reasons for this, again, and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party is very open about this, are strategic electorally. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party does not have as wide an electoral base as the Awami League. So they can make up for a lot of that by having an alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami. In fact, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, officials will very readily tell you, we do not have an ideological alliance with them. This is purely for electoral purposes. The BNP may have felt that they could sort of control this Islamist group. But in fact, what we've seen is that, as often happens with radical groups, the menace sort of got out of control. So today, what's become very interesting is there's been the introduction, but it's really a reintroduction of an old political player, and that's a man named Kamal Hussein. Kamal Hussein is a former Awami League minister who left the party in the 1990s, and he's come back. Kamal Hussein is very well respected. He's very well respected as a secular Democrat, small d. And when he came back this year with the Gano Forum and the Oikya Front is the alliance that he's put together, he said, we want to form an alliance with the BNP in opposition to the Awami League, who's presently governing. But there's one strict condition, and that condition is Jamaat-e-Islami and other radical Islamist groups cannot be a part of this alliance. Unfortunately, that hasn't quite worked out. So a lot of us had a lot of cautious optimism that maybe we were seeing a new chapter in Bangladesh's politics. In the past couple of weeks, what we've seen instead is that the BNP gave 25 nominations to Jamaat-e-Islami leadership. Kamal Hussein's group, Oikya Front, unfortunately only got, I believe, 17 or 19. So Jamaat-e-Islami still plays this outsized influence in Bangladeshi politics. One of the things we're going to talk here more about is Jamaat-e-Islami's role here in the United States and outside Bangladesh. And I think it's important as we get into this conversation, we talk more about this, to define a little bit, talk a little bit, and although this may seem counterintuitive, but what Jamaat-e-Islami is not. Jamaat-e-Islami is not as some of its lobbyists have characterized in the past, a conservative Islamic political party in Bangladesh. In fact, Jamaat-e-Islami is not a Bangladeshi organization at all, any more than Coca-Cola is a Bangladeshi company because you can buy Coca-Cola in Bangladesh. Jamaat-e-Islami is a transnational group in South Asia. It's often referred to as the Muslim Brotherhood of South Asia. And the reason that there's a lot of confusion about this, especially in Washington, is that Jamaat-e-Islami has invested a lot in lobbying in Washington to fill in this space where people are unfamiliar with their own definitions. In fact, just this morning I was going through some government filings and noticed that they had hired another lobby firm here in Washington.
Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh has.
Yes, okay. Jamaat-e-Islami. And the according to their contract with the lobby firm, the scope of work requires the firm to ensure that United States government policies do not shift in any manner contrary to the interests of Jamaat-e-Islami, nor create an environment where Jamaat-e-Islami is defined as a security threat within Bangladesh or on an international scale. Well, maybe we should talk a little bit about what it is that Jamaat-e-Islami is. So Jamaat-e-Islami was founded in 1941 in India by the fundamentalist Islamist philosopher Abu Allah Maududi, and has chapters across South Asia and in fact all across the world. So what do they believe? What do they want? If you ask their lobbyists, they'll tell you one thing, but I prefer to go to primary sources. Let's ask Jamaat-e-Islami what they want. So what did Maulana Maududi say? He laid clear the objective of his organization when he said in 1939, and this is the quote, "The truth is that Islam is not the name of a religion, nor is Muslim the title of a nation. In reality, Islam is a revolutionary ideology and program which seeks to alter the social order of the whole world and rebuild it in conformity with its own tenets and ideals." Maududi went on to explain that Islam wishes to destroy all states and governments anywhere on the face of the earth which are opposed to the ideology and program of Islam, regardless of the country or the nation which rules it. Now, suffice it to say, I know and have known a lot of Muslims. In college I took, well, I'm not Muslim myself, but I've studied, I've taken Islamic studies classes. What Maulana Maududi describes does not reflect any Muslims I know. It does reflect some people whom I've met over the course of my work, who are members of Jamaat-e-Islami though. So this is what Jamaat-e-Islami believed and what they wanted 77 years ago. But what about now, right? So in 2005, a Jamaat-e-Islami leader in Bangladesh named Mir Qasim Ali gave a speech to a gathering of Islami Chhatra Shibir. It's the name of the student wing. Think of it as like college Democrats, but for Islamists. During this address, he predicted, with tears in his eyes, the establishment of a new Islamic caliphate and called on Chhatra Shibir members to be frontline soldiers in bringing about the end of what he called heathen Western civilization. Now this video, this speech is available actually on YouTube, and I want to actually say thanks to Islami Chhatra Shibir for posting it and even subtitling it in English, making it very easy to find. But the point is that Jamaat-e-Islami's goal of forcibly transforming the world to meet their vision of a so-called Islamic state continues. In fact, it was echoed again in 2016 by the head of Jamaat-e-Islami's branch in Pakistan. While saying funeral prayers for the terrorist convicted of assassinating Punjab Governor Salman Taseer, Jamaat-e-Islami's Siraj al-Haq prayed for Allah to grant Jamaat-e-Islami the power to enforce Sharia across the globe, and declared that he and his supporters were prepared to sacrifice their lives to that end. Now, Jamaat-e-Islami's penchant for violence was perhaps exhibited best during the 1971 War of Liberation of Bangladesh. But this is by no means the only example. In fact, In 2013, before the elections in Bangladesh, Hindus in Bangladesh were targeted in a wave of violent attacks that vandalized their temples, burned their homes, and destroyed their shops. According to Amnesty International researchers on the ground, survivors told them that the attacks had been organized and carried out by Jamaat-e-Islami and its youth wing, Chhatra Shabir. The State Department's 2013 report on international religious freedom for Bangladesh noted that, according to the main domestic human rights organization, Aino Salish Kendra, 278 homes, 495 statues and monasteries and temples were destroyed, 208 businesses were destroyed, 188 persons were injured, and at least one person was killed. And that international press, human rights organizations, and the Hindu community leaders all laid this at the feet of Chhatra Shabir and Jamaat-e-Islami. Hundreds of Jamaat-e-Islami attacks against Bangladesh's religious minorities have shaken the country to its core in recent years, in what observers have called a coordinated campaign by Islamist extremists to destroy the country's democracy and cleanse it of religious minorities, including Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and Ahmadiyya Muslims. Ahmadiyya Muslims, by the way, have the unfortunate circumstance of being the wrong kind of Muslim, which, as we've seen in Pakistan and other places, sort of is where the exclusionary politics of these groups tend to go. Jamaat-e-Islami a few months ago carried out a campaign of arson attacks targeting Hindu homes. And meanwhile, in Pakistan, Jamaat-e-Islami has been linked to groups like Al-Qaeda, Al-Badr, and Hizbul Mujahideen in Kashmir. And it's played a key role in both the Afghan jihad fighting against Allied forces and the Kashmir jihad. So, Jamaat-e-Islami does have people that engage in politics, though. So perhaps it's not incorrect to call them a political party where they're registered as such, though they're not registered as a political party in Bangladesh. But regardless, to call Jamaat a political party is no more accurate than it would be to refer to an entire person as an arm. They are a transnational organization with an explicit agenda of replacing democracy with their vision of a theocracy. It's not about religion. It's about power. They pursue this agenda by exploiting legal and democratic processes with the intention of undermining and ultimately removing them. And they encourage, condone, justify, and support the commission of violent acts to achieve their political, ideological, and social goals. The very definition not of a political party, but of a violent extremist group.
Okay, before we move